Hey guys, I want to discuss a topic that I feel is very important and not just like, well, especially the beginning of OCD, having OCD anxiety and really, making progress. But it's really a foundation that I found for me, and I want to start this off. I want to start this off by just a kind of a big picture of how I understand who I am, my identity, and then the parts of our brain. So if you don't know this is very important. If you do, that's awesome. You have an unconscious brain that runs programs. I've mentioned this before, and you can look this up. I want to do a lot more on this subject. But you have an unconscious. We could also, just for simplicity's sake, also include the term subconscious. I'm going to use them interchangeable probably, but you have an unconscious hidden brain that runs programs, and like a computer system would. Okay, and we have these programs running all the time. They help us automate things in our life. These programs also come up as triggers. Okay, so that's where these programs run all the time. They're in the background mostly, if we're not aware of it. We'll get to that later. If we're not aware of it, okay? So you have an unconscious brain, and then you've got a thinking brain, right? We use this, a rational, thinking, conscious brain that kind of tends to be who I would say most people tend to think of themselves as their thinking brain. This is where you engage life with, right? Through this prefrontal cortex, which is interesting that your thinking brain developed, if we take an evolutionary perspective, it developed after your emotional brain, which came on top of your more monkey brain, right? So who we tend to think that we are, our thinking brain, came after our emotional side. So we're really emotional beings first, who are learning to think. And so thinking brain, and then we have a third aspect, and this gets into spirituality and religion, and I don't know what your beliefs are, but I'm going to share mine. And just from the fact that I believe we have a soul, I can't prove that, but I can base that based on this part of ourselves that can become aware, that can observe our thinking brain and then our unconscious programs coming up. It's a part of us that can do that. And what is that? Like, to become aware that I'm having those thoughts, that I'm thinking, is separate. And that's who I really think I am. And spiritual teachers and religious teachers will call it your soul. And so for me, that makes sense. I have this part of me that when I die, my body will die, but my soul is going to do something. It's going to go somewhere. It's going to live on. Maybe it's another life, another journey, whatever, story, belief you want to have there. But I believe there's something that lasts, that carries on when I die. Now, that part I want to get to, what I said is the observer, the awareness part that can look at what is happening. And that's the part that you are channeling or identifying with when you separate a obsession from a compulsion, to use OCD terms, right? So when you notice I'm having these feelings, these thoughts, and you want to do that thing, and you step in and you notice that pattern, that's your observer, that's your awareness. And that's who I identify with more, is that part, because that's really the part that can see everything happening, and it can step back. It allows you to pull yourself out of that emotional triggering situation and lets you to let that thing be. An example is a journey in my life right now is my unconscious giving me a lot of fears about my health. So example was me, I'm a personal trainer, I was doing training, I was training a client, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know, I was itching something on my stomach, and I felt like a little bump. And this is a bump that I felt before, maybe years ago. I think it's probably a lymph node. I felt it for a while, but every time I kind of feel this little sensation, it triggers my mind telling me that it's something worse. And it's something, maybe it's a tumor, maybe it's a growth that I need to get checked out. Maybe I could be, spreading throughout my body. Maybe I have like 6 months to live. Maybe I'm gonna die. So that's the thoughts going through my mind. Now I had a moment, I had awareness that I'm having that thought. And I could have went with it, and in the past I would have just jumped on board and tried to put it out and made up some kind of story in my mind about why it's not. Or worse, I would have gone and checked and maybe Google to see what that could be and whatever. But I let it be there, and I noticed I'm having that thought. And the rational part of my mind, as I stepped away from it and just let it be there, I noticed that this is not me. This is a program being triggered, coming up, trying to influence me, and I will not go with it. I'm gonna let it be what it is. And so that's an example of it going well. You notice when you step out and you just let it be, you start to get a better perspective about what that actually was. And you almost get more rational, because you're not being flooded with those chemicals from your unconscious, and your conscious brain can then relax. So identifying with the observer is how you are going to initially deal with your OCD symptoms, right? So we talk about the kind of more of a root cause with OCD, and then we talk about the symptoms. And it's not my position to really go after fixing symptoms, but you do take this step with symptoms, right? This observer, this stopping compulsions, because we know that we are not, the brain is just running this program. And so we can let it do its thing and we can watch it. And that's how we step away from the addictive behavior to our thoughts. And it's a bigger, to me, this whole process, and I want to hear your thoughts, about how this has worked for you and where you're at in this process. Because I'm learning much of this, and still developing that skill. But our unconscious is going to continually throw up these programs, these triggers, these fears to try to hook us. It's doing that for a reason, because it feels the unsafe, that it feels the issues, the concerns, whatever it is, and it's up to us to let it do that, to let it do what it needs to do, but to not add gas to the fire. And as we over time develop that skill of not adding gas onto that program, not running that program, the unconscious will feel safe and it won't need to run that program. You won't get triggered as often. So that's been my experience. Less triggers, and when I do get triggered, I know how to handle it. I know how to just let it go and not. And pouring gas is a good way, because it's almost like a fire, right? But not running that program and giving my unconscious reasons to think that it was right for running that. So so that's what I want to talk about. If you haven't seen that perspective, hopefully this would give you something that could help you. If you do this already and you see this way, this perspective, comment, let me know what helps you doing this, or just your thoughts on it. Feel free to engage with this post. Hope it helps. Have a good day.